Good morning from the cloudy Copenhagen, and welcome to the webinar Unlocking Energy Efficiency in Municipalities, Water Energy Nexus in Existing Water Supply Systems, hosted by Copenhagen Center on Energy Efficiency. My name is Begonia, and I'm working as a research assistant at the Copenhagen Center, and I will be the moderator for today's webinar. A couple of things before we move to the main content of our webinar. This webinar is going to be about 30 minutes long, including time for Q&A at the end. In case you cannot stay until then or want to get back to our presentations, all the materials and recording of the whole webinar will be available online in a few days on the Copenhagen Center's Knowledge Management System. And we have many other webinar and information there. Have a look. I will give you more information in a few minutes. Before we start discussing about today's webinar, I would like to inform our attendees that we comply with the General Data Protection Act, also known as GDPR. This means that your personal data, such as name, email, workplace, etc., is safely processed and stored, and all of your rights pursuant to the GDPR are respected. You have full access to the data being processed about you, and at any time you can request that inaccurate data be deleted or rectified. For access or further information, please contact with the people that are presented here. A few things about the Copenhagen Center. The Center conducts research and advisory activities in the field of energy efficiency and serves as Energy Efficiency Hub for the Sustainable Energy for All initiative. The Center has an established network of global, regional, and national partners with a broad range of stakeholders to help accelerate the implementation of energy efficiency activities. On a regular basis, the Copenhagen Center is conducting webinars. All materials, including recordings and presentations from previous webinars, can be found on Copenhagen Center's Knowledge Management System under the e-learning section. The material of today's webinar will be uploaded shortly, but until then, you can check one of the recommended webinars that are related to today's topic. Now, I would like to briefly introduce you to the speaker for today's webinar. Santiago Martinez Santaclara is an energy engineer with focus on energy technology and sustainable energy. And as part of the Copenhagen Center on Energy Efficiency, he engages with municipalities and national governments to try to accelerate the uptake of energy efficiency through the identification of specific actions to improve water supply, district energy, and street lighting systems. Finally, I would like to inform that you can send us your questions during the presentations, and we will do our best to answer as many as we can at the end. Now, after this introduction, I would like to give the floor to the speaker of today's webinar, Santiago.
Thank you, Begonia. Good morning from Copenhagen to all the participants of this webinar. My name is Santiago, and today I'll be the panelist on this webinar on water and energy efficiency. First, a bit of agenda. Today we will talk about what's the current status of the water sector, particularly about the water supply systems. And then we will dig into energy efficiency opportunities and water efficiency, the linkages that create the water energy nexus, and why is this so important. Water availability is a main driver for sustainable development. In the interdependencies between the water and energy sectors are very strong and need to be addressed as a whole, commonly known as the water energy nexus. In the one hand, the energy consumed in the water sector represents around 4% of the total power consumed worldwide, not being a priority at a national level when tackling the energy misuse. Still, this percentage is very variable country to country or region to region, being 1% in Japan, around 5% in Spain, but up to 20% in California. On the other hand, water consumption is projected to increase up to 40% by 2040, being this increase even higher in developing countries. As a matter of fact, the World Bank estimates that water scarcity, mainly due to climate change, can cost some regions up to 6% of their GDP by 2050. But where are the authorities in all of this? Authorities play a crucial role in both issues, both to promote energy efficiency through the removal of inefficient appliances from the market, water efficiency through the promotion of a correct use of the water and a fair trade use of it. Climate change does not respect any sector nor border. So due to its impact on water resources, solutions need to be coordinated at all levels, local, national, but also international. Water supply is the intermediate stage of the water cycle, and normally the one that consumes the most. Any inefficiency at this stage will have a larger impact in the overall cycle, as the other stages are tied to this one, to the location of the consumer demand. Energy is the largest controllable expenditure in the utilities, so a high electricity demand can lead to unsustainable cost of operation, affecting directly to the public finance, budgets, and tariffs for the final consumers. But best practices have demonstrated that specific individual energy efficiency and water efficiency actions can bring savings of up to 40% on energy and paybacks lower than 5 years. But how can we measure the potential impact of specific energy efficiency actions? Indicators such as the energy index help us understand what's the existing relation between the water production and the energy consumed to produce it, providing us a baseline for comparison. The potential benefits of a specific energy efficiency action can be then benchmarked against the current situation, analyzing both potential on energy efficiency increase, reduction of energy consumption, financial savings, or equivalent emissions avoided, among others. Still, energy efficiency and water efficiency actions should not be studied individually, but at the same time in a holistic approach. Starting from the final consumer, and any savings either through energy efficiency or water consumption reduction will reduce the requirements of energy and water of the previous step, being so the capacity needed reduced. Any increase in the overall efficiency of the system and a reduction in the capacity needed facilitates the unlocking of better payback periods and more reliable systems. The largest inefficiencies are normally found in pumps, mainly working out of their design points, lack of maintenance, or just being aged, but also on electric motors, lack of presence of variable speed drives to control the off-peak operation, or having a low power factor in the utilities. It is widespread the fallacy that energy efficiency components are too expensive. As a matter of fact, the purchasing price of any of these components only represents around 2% of the total expenditures during the lifetime of any component, being the other 98% related to electricity costs and the maintenance. A great example of energy efficiency increase in water supply systems was found in Guyana, where the national water utility, together with the Inter-American Development Bank, studied the existing efficiency in several pumping stations throughout the country. They tried to identify where were the inefficiencies and where were the opportunities for improving both the water and the energy efficiency. In total, they replaced 34 motor pump sets, equivalent to the 25% of the electricity consumed in the country for pumping, and are achieving an outstanding energy efficiency increase by 29%, with an annual savings of $700,000, and just with a simple payback of 3 months. But what about water savings? First, we need to understand a few terms. We call non-revenue water to all the water that is produced but not billed, with the one exception of the authorized consumption not billed, which is provided to social groups in risk of exclusion, for public areas, or fight against fires. Non-revenue water can be simplified to 2 terms: physical losses, these related to leakages during the water transportation, that can be visible in the case of being a superficial pipe, but normally due to the system being buried, is quite difficult to locate. And commercial losses, which is the water consumed that for different reasons is not billed. Being these reasons, the lack of a proper census in the municipality, lack of correct tariffs for the final users, or illegal connections. Some rough estimation says that more than 2/3 of the potential energy savings relies on a better use of water. In order to avoid both water scarcity and the negative impacts of climate change, a holistic approach that takes into account both water and energy is needed, as we already said. Water demand management is an approach that aims to conserve water by incentives to promote efficient and equitable use of water. Public campaigns to create awareness of the real cost of water, new tariffs that reflects the real cost of it, or the introduction of metering systems, among other solutions. Water demand management is guided by economic efficiency, equity, and access, being perfectly suitable to include in a water action plans together with energy management projects. With this holistic approach, we can promote the automatization of systems for a better control through, for example, SCADA systems, the implementation of preventive maintenance instead of so that we replace the pipe before the burst and leakages appear, or through the introduction of gradual introduction of metering, as these measures for water control take a larger time than any energy efficiency action. A good example of a joint effort for water and energy savings effort is Sanasa in Brazil. It's located in the Sao Paulo region. Between the year 2000 and 2008, the city of Campinas developed a successful energy program that achieved an increase in tap water connections by 22%, without an additional energy or water requirements. This increase came especially from the connection of areas with risk of social exclusion, reaching a final 98% of connections in the city. In some of the plants inside the utility, up to 30% reduction in energy consumption and 20% of the capacity contracted were achieved. Only with the introduction of variable speed drives, optimizing the operation by running or pumping water out of peak hours, and achieving an outstanding payback period of less than 4 years. To sum up, a joint effort to improve both water and energy efficiency can revert more energy savings due to the interlinkages between both, bringing more financial savings, resilience against climate change due to water savings, and reduction of equivalent greenhouse gases emissions, and with short payback periods. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Santiago, for your presentation. And now I would like to introduce the Q&A session. We have received some questions from the audience that I would like to introduce now. The first question we have received, what actions should be prioritized in the whole water supply system to improve the overall water and energy performance?
Based on best practices and our own experience with it, first is required to develop a full analysis of the utility under study. And once its weaknesses and strengths are identified, the actions regarding energy efficiency can normally be prioritized due to its simplicity, lower payback period, and direct impact. Still, an integrated plan with water management is a must, as these actions require more time and to be implemented more gradually to come into implementation.
Thank you so much, Santiago. Then the second question is as follows. What do you mean by operating the water system out of the peak demand hours? Could we end up not covering all the demand?
So the power utilities are interested in us, well, everyone working out of the peak hours to reduce the grid constraints. If the tariff acknowledges through a variable electricity price, we can always get advantage of it by pumping fresh water into existing storage or reservoirs out of the peak hours, for example, during the night when the electricity is more cheaper, and releasing this water when needed. If we end up not covering all the demand, if the system is properly sized, this should never happen because what we control is not the amount of water we supply, but the pressure inside the pipes. And it could be possible through a drought, but no, it's quite complicated.
Thank you, Santiago. And another question we have received. My municipality and water utility budgets are quite constrained. How can I access finance to upgrade my system?
Again, a full analysis is a must. Financiers like transparency as it reduces its risk when potential projects arise. I would say that the problem is not that there's not money available, but to call the attention of who has it. These projects normally by sight might not be very appetizing, but there are several vehicles or ways to call their attention. It could be through accessing an ESCO or through building project bundling projects, where we can aggregate several projects into one that will gain both volume, interest of banks or multilateral organizations, but also credibility.
Thank you so much, Santiago. Another question we have received from the audience. Why it's difficult to develop a scalable municipal water supply program in developing countries like India, Sri Lanka, or Bangladesh?
one of the main issues is the lack of awareness of the populations towards what's the real value of the water, both by means of the scarcity of water and the cost that it's inherent to the production of that amount of water. So when the water is not billed by its real cost, the users don't have the need to control its use, and so they normally see as a negative thing to implement metering that can help to control the systems through automatization, also through they can see as a quite a difficult. It's difficult to say that you spend the money to finance refurbishment in a pipe that you don't see that is burst, but because it's underground, because they can see that that money could be used in other things that are more, in their opinion, more critical. So I would say that the main issue is the lack of awareness.
Thank you so much, Santiago. And one last question we have received from the audience. What's your view on role of energy efficiency in achieving cost recovery of water supply systems?
Yeah, sorry, thank you. Both either through the increase on energy efficiency or through the reduction of energy consumption through reduction of the water that we don't sell, that we lose. Energy is the largest expenditure of utilities apart from the labor. The labor is a must. We need the workers doing the maintenance and operation of the system. So after that, electricity is the expenditure that we can control the best. So any savings on energy efficiency or energy consumption will alleviate the financial status of either the utility or the municipality, and will allow to both generate more savings, but at the same time, with those savings, we can use a part of it to promote water efficiency savings, as could be a shift to preventive maintenance, shift to better control systems, or also increase the sewage plants in case that they don't have the full capacity to deal with the amount of water required for the users, increasing the amount of tap connections by providing this to social groups in risk of exclusion, and so on.
Thank you so much, Santiago, for the detailed responses to the questions. Well, now, ladies and gentlemen, finally, we come to the end of the webinar. I would like to say thank you to Santiago one more time for the informative and interesting presentation, and to the audience for their participation. We hope that the presentation will be beneficial for all stakeholders involved in energy efficiency, and thank you for your attention, and I wish you a good day or night from Copenhagen.